Right.
Sadly, we don't have much common sense in this world.
We're striving to it. So we are beginning today. It shows that we are live streaming. So we welcome all of you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Sunday. We are starting session number 4 of this beautiful discussion on the purpose of creation. We welcome Mr. Kambiz Hakim, the author of this pamphlet, the pamphlet that we've been discussing over the past 3 sessions. We welcome all of you who are here today on Zoom with any questions that you may have as we are providing a short recap for what has already been discussed. But we know as a fact that there are a lot of subjects that just looking at it, there's discussion, there's reflection, there's meditation needed so that we can understand just some of those pearls that are hidden within the depths of these wise words of wisdom that Mr. Kambiz Hakim sources from. So, as we all know, the Baha'i writings, it's very extensive, very expansive. And even if you read certain passages, the meanings that you can derive from those passages are multitudinous. So, having said that, we welcome all of your questions, everyone who's here on the Zoom chat, and those of you who are on YouTube and on Facebook. As we are streaming this live, we welcome you to leave your comments and we hope to address them so we can, of course, address your concerns, your questions, and ultimately hopefully we can help each other search for truth together. So, with that being said, to start our discussion, Mr. Kambiz Hakim is asking for questions that we may have from the audience, and we will be providing a short recapitulation of what was discussed. Welcome again, Mr. Kambiz Hakim. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here this morning with you. Well, as it was said, if there are any questions that you have from prior sessions that we can talk about before I start today's session. Is there anything at all? Okay, I guess there's no question. You know, to begin, on the first session, we discussed
I have a question actually.
yeah, yes.
And this is because of experience that I've had. If the subject has come up with some of my friends who may not believe in the afterlife, or that there is a spiritual reality beyond the reality that we can tangibly see and understand as we live in this world, what would we say to someone who thinks that the world that we know, as soon as we die, it ends and there is nothing after that?
Well, one example has come to my mind, I share with you. When Einstein came from Germany to United States, he's from Jewish background. He was a Jew. But in reality, he did not have belief in God. Being Jew was a tradition, wasn't a religion. He used to go to the Baha'i firesides in the apartment of the Keeney family in Manhattan on the West Side. Einstein never mentioned God in his writings or in his talks or anything. When he wrote the book on the relativity, he did not mention God. What he said, that has to be a force, a power, something that created this universe. It is too perfect to be accidental. Okay? All somebody has to do is look at this infinite universe in its perfection and contemplate How could this possibly have come together accidentally without a creator? If they cannot do that, the next best thing is that when they die, they will realize the truth. All right? But people have to look things with open mind and open heart. If they cannot do that, there's nothing you can do for them. You just let them be. Okay, friends. We started this program talking about the 4 kinds of love. One was the love of God for his creatures that he created us. And through that love, he gave us all of his attributes potentially. The second kind of love was the love he wants us to have for him. Since God is not within his creation in his essence, the only way we could know God is through his manifestations, through his prophets, who reflect him in the kingdom of creation in absolute virtues. Coming to know God and to love God, according to Kitab al-Aqdas, the most holy book, first is the recognition of the manifestation of God for the day and age we live in, and then obedience to all the laws. And Baha'u'lláh mentions these 2 things are inseparable. One cannot be accepted without the other. Okay? To me, this description of recognition of the manifestation and obedience to the laws, to me, it means the definition of love of God. Because loving God is knowing him and obeying him and worshiping him. As in our small obligatory prayer, I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. This is the whole purpose of creation. And of course, the third kind of love was the love he wants to have for us, for each other. And this true love for each other has to be through the love of God. Again, that means that we have to love each other, work with each other, live with each other according to the laws of God. At any time anybody thinks who's in love with somebody else outside of this, Abdul Baha called that fascination. It's only temporary. And you see that in today's world. People, they think they're in love today, tomorrow they hate each other. Because it's an illusion, has no reality. And the 4th kind of love was the love God has for himself, is like a painter looking at his painting and admiring his painting, his creation. These are the 4 kinds of love, and there is no other love outside of this. These are the realities of love. Now, Baha'u'lláh in the Hidden Words has written, O son of spirit, there is no peace for thee save by renouncing thyself and turning unto me, for it behoveth thee to glory in my name, not in thine own, to put thy trust in me and not in thyself. Since I desire to be loved alone and above all that is. This is Hidden Words number 8 in the Arabic, beginning of the book. So what does it mean when God wants us to love him above all things? It means, again, through the recognition of the manifestation and obedience to the laws. This is the love. God in reality has no need of our love. He created us for our own sake. He gave us this universe and all that therein for our benefits, our progress. So loving God, I mean, God gains no benefit from our love. Nothing. It's totally outside his creation. All of this is for our own benefit. And through this love of God, where we have love, unity, justice, and ever advancing civilization. You see, every time a manifestation of God appears, two things happens. One is the revelation he brings to humanity, through which humanity's knowledge increases and spiritually he grows. Secondly is the energy that is released within the world that increases the capacity of humanity for understanding the new revelation, also bringing about progress, scientific and otherwise, within this world. All of these things happens because of that energy released by the manifestation. As you have read in the past, Baha'u'lláh says that knowledge is 27 letters. In all the previous dispensations, only 2 letters of that was revealed to humanity. By coming of Bab and Baha'u'lláh, the other 25 letters were revealed. When you look at from 1844 to present time, look at the progress scientifically within this world. It's incredible. How come humanity in all these past dispensations, we only progress very small degrees of scientific development, even spiritual development? But suddenly with coming of Bab and Baha'u'lláh, the line went almost vertical since 1844. And this will never end. This progress will never end. The other thing that humanity ignores, does not understand, as in Baha'i faith, we know that science and religion must go hand in hand. Science comes from God. He's the creator. He's the one who has created universe and everything that there is there in it. All sciences come from God. Also, religion comes from God. How can two things coming from one source disagree? Is impossible. The disagreement only happens and comes about through the lack of true understanding of humanity or through wrong interpretations of the holy writings. You see, unfortunately, these leaders of religion are using religion to control masses. They interpret the writings in such a fashion to suit themselves and give themselves power, authority. And that's why religion has become the biggest cause of disunity and hatred and wars. A lot of our young people who are not interested in religion today, somewhat I don't blame them. Because they look at the religion, they look at the history, and they see all the wars, atrocities that has happened in the world in the name of God, in the name of religion. They say, I don't want this. Whereas the purpose of all religion has been love and unity and justice. But again, unfortunately, because human beings' interpretation, things have changed. That's why that's one of the reasons God from age to age sends his prophets, manifestations, to bring us this straight path again to God. Help us to understand the purpose. And also to understand, where are we going? What is the purpose of life? You know, Abdul Baha has said at the beginning of every journey, Look at the end of the journey. You have to recognize where you're going. And then you have to figure out what you're going to need for this journey to get to your destiny. And also, what are you going to need when you get there to be prepared for that? You see, the same thing exists while the child is in the womb of a mother, spends 9 months to develop physically so that when he is born, he's complete. He can grow and progress in this world completely. But if the child is not developed properly in that womb of a mother, it's going to be handicapped. So this world, in essence, is another womb with a difference. God has given us the mind, the power of understanding, recognition, emotion, told us what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, and He has given us free will to choose. And at the end, by the choices we make, we have to answer for it. Now, when the time comes, we live this life according to the degree of spirituality that we have gained and the love of God in our heart. Our station will be determined in other worlds of God. You see, that other world of God is not that much different than here. The elements of the other worlds are different than here, but the purpose is the same. That world is a world of discovery, is a world of love, is a world that we work and progress, is a world of discovery. Everything that we have in this world, the reality exists in the next. But the degrees differs. Higher the station, greater is awareness. You know, in Baha'i faith, we talk about heaven and hell. Heaven is a condition of absolute consciousness and awareness. Hell is a station of ignorance. And Baha'u'lláh, the example he gave was a comparison between your eye and your nail. They both exist, they both grow. One you cherish, the other one you pare. You cut your nails. In comparison, it's a dead object, even though it exists. Now, this journey has many steps. It's a wonderful journey, but on purpose, God created this world in such a fashion that good and bad exist, because this is the arena that you can make choices. And a lot of times we learn in this world from our mistakes. Mistakes, you know, altogether, it might have a difficult results. But if somebody uses the mistakes they make in a positive way, is a way of awareness, of recognizing the right, what is good. So God has given us in this world 70, 80, 90 years for us to practice and learn. And finally, when the times comes for us to leave this life, go to the next, we can only take the good things with us, the spiritual qualities. The other worlds of God has no bad in it. It's all good. Baha'u'lláh says is a safe approach to God. It's in this world that all the tests and difficulties exist. And God created that for our progress. All right. Now, this journey that we are on in this world, Baha'u'lláh has given us some assistance in understanding how we can travel through this world, how we can have a positive growth. In the Seven Valley, Baha'u'lláh has given us the 7 steps of development. I'm not going to read each one, I'm just going to give you the heading. First is the valley of search. How does somebody come to search for the truth? Baha'u'lláh says first and foremost is the purity of heart. In the hidden words, the first tablet is the purity of heart. Without purity of heart, progress is impossible. So the person who's searching first goes through the valley of search, searches everywhere trying to find the truth, until he comes to recognize the manifestation of God. Once the person recognizes the manifestation of God, he will begin to fall in love. This is the valley of love. Because he becomes so enamored of the manifestation of God that when you read the history of the Baha'i faith or any other religion, those individuals at that time, they didn't have too much knowledge of what Baha'i faith is. They gave their life for the faith because of the love they had for the manifestation, for the Baha'u'lláh. And they gave their life with joy and gladness, not with fear. See? And then after valley of love comes the valley of knowledge. You see, then you start reading the writings. You want to know everything there is. But again, unless there is purity of heart, your soul is not open to recognizing the truth. Once the purity of heart, the love of God, and the desire to know and understand is in your heart, then you start by reading, you begin to understand. And you will not understand just by once reading, because there's so much in these writings, infinite degree of understanding, that every time you read, you understand something new. That's why Baha'u'lláh in the Kitab Aqdas has written, to be faithful to the covenant of God, one must read the writings every morning and every evening. You don't have to read pages of it to fulfill this. Even if you read 1 line or 2 lines with joy and gladness, you have fulfilled the obligation. Because without knowledge, how can you know what to do? You have to have the first knowledge. And as your knowledge increases, also your love for God increases. Your love for the religion increases. Next, we come to the valley of unity. This unity is a unity that we gain through the love of God. Remember the 4 loves? One is the love we will have for God through the manifestation. The other love is the love we have for each other through the love of God. This is how the world order comes about, through this love. You see, God has a purpose in his creation. The creation of God is not without purpose. Every one of us, we have a special task, specific task to fulfill within this great plan of God. But to be able to do that, we have to, through our own effort, through our own free will, develop that within ourselves. But ultimately, the purpose is that we cleanse the mirror of our heart to such a degree that it reflects all the attributes of God. That's our job. Then we come to the valley of contentment. The valley of contentment is that it doesn't mean that we sit around just saying, okay, whatever is will of God. No. We do our best to live our life according to the teachings of God, and we do our utmost effort to fulfill all the things that God wants us to fulfill. But there are times that things are out of our control. That's the time, as long as we are doing our deeds according to the writings, to the holy words, then whatever is out of our hand, we leave to the wish of God, to the will of God. That's the time that you're in a condition of absolute contentment. No matter what happens, you accept and you rejoice. And you know whatever is happening to you is for your own good. Because these are all the tests for our spiritual development. Then we come to the valley of wonderment. At that moment, everything within creation you look at, you see nothing but signs of God, creation of God and attributes of God. You are so dazzled by everything that you become blind to the personal animalistic desires within yourself. You see, human being without a spiritual recognition, development, all he knows is the animal existence. Because through the physical senses, we see, we recognize the life in this world. What is it? To provide for ourselves food, shelter, comfort, all the selfish desires, anger, jealousy, resentment. These are all part of the animal existence. Until human beings turn his head towards God, to spiritual, to the manifestation, he is nothing but an animal, his existence, no more than an animal. But we are not created to be animal. God has given us a soul ability through cognitive, affective, to know him, to love him, and to progress spiritually through all the worlds of God. You see, Bahá'u'lláh said the worlds of God are infinite in numbers and infinite in range. Now, in this world, our soul functions through this body. For all eternity, you will never see your soul. You will never recognize what it's made of. It is in other worlds of God. In all the worlds of God, the soul functions through a form made of the elements of that kingdom. And every world of God has a different elements, different dimension. I read to you from Abdul-Baha. Abdul-Baha says, the human reality in other world has no physical likeness. Nay, rather, it has the likeness of the kingdom, which consists of the harmonious elements of the realm of the spiritual kingdom. You see, every world of God has its own elements. What is made of, we don't know. It's different than this world. But it has its elements. And the soul, whatever kingdom we are born into after this life, will be given a form made of the elements of that kingdom, that through which it progresses in that kingdom until such time, through the mercy of God, is allowed to move one level up to a higher kingdom. When that happens, he has to leave behind the elements of the lower kingdom and take on another form made of the elements of a higher kingdom. That is why in the hidden words again, number 63. O Son of Man, the light has shone on thee from the horizon of the sacred mount, and the spirit of enlightenment hath breathed in the Sinai of thy heart. Wherefore free thyself from the veils of idle fancies, and enter into my court, that thou mayest be fit for everlasting life, and worthy to meet me. Thus may death not come upon thee, neither weariness nor trouble. You see here, Baha'u'lláh mentions death. Death is only a change of form. It's not the end, just a change of form. So whichever kingdom we are enter in the next world is best suited for us and for our progress. And we will continue living and existing in that world until such time, through the mercy of God, we are allowed to progress and move on to higher kingdom. Now in the gleanings on page 157, Baha'u'lláh has said, when the soul attaineth the presence of God, that means when the soul enters the Abha kingdom, it will assume the form that best befiteth its immortality and is worthy of its celestial habitation. The form that is given to us at that moment in the Abha kingdom is ours eternally. Death will never visit that space, that condition. Now, the other thing I have to tell you, as much as wealth exists in this world, wealth exists in all the other worlds of God. That's why in the holy writings, and we are going to read here about three major barriers, about detachment. When we talk about detachment, that means there has to be attachment. How does one be attached to something? It's through ownership, through belonging. Now, this word of detachment doesn't mean not having. What it means, not allowing anything to come between us and the love of God. That's what detachment means. You can have all the wealth of the world as long as it doesn't come between you and God. And since love of God is obedience to his laws, all a rich man can do is use his wealth for the benefit of humanity. At that time, the wealth is not something you accumulate. You use wealth for the better and progress of humanity. Abdul-Baha calls that person light upon light. Okay? There's nothing wrong with being wealthy, as long as you use your wealth in the proper way. All right, before we start reading this, which we're going to read these 3 major barriers, are there any questions? We covered a lot of things so far, but we did it very quickly.
Could you tell us more about the valley of poverty?
Yes. Oh, thank you. I didn't finish that. That was it. Okay. The valley of poverty, which is valley of absolute nothingness, it means not having things again. It means that all the characteristics that belongs to an individual, which is animalistic and selfish, is no longer exist. I will give you an analogy. When you take a piece of iron, what are the characteristics of iron? It's cold, it's hard, it's dark. Okay? When you put this element into the fire, this fire representing the love of God, what happens to it? It gradually starts taking on the qualities of fire and giving its own qualities up. It becomes soft, it becomes hot, it becomes luminous. Greater this metal is in the fire, greater it becomes, it takes on the attributes of the fire. But if you take that metal out of the fire, what happens to it? It goes back to its original condition. This condition of absolute nothingness, poverty, is that we are in that fire of love of God, and there is nothing of us left except the attributes and love of God. That's what it means by that. There was a question somehow Parisa raised. Parisa, you want to say that? Did that answer you? Hello? You see, let me read something else to you also. I'm going now to the 4 valleys, the 4th valley. Okay? Here Baha'u'lláh talks about the station of the concourse on high. These are the people in the Upper Kingdom at the highest level, where there is nothing of themselves left except the love of God and the attributes of God. Let's see how Baha'u'lláh refers to them. For this is the realm of absolute command and is free of all attributes of earth. The exalted dwellers in this mansion do wield divine authority in the court of rapture with utter gladness, and they do bear a kingly scepter You know, scepter is a representative of the power of a king. These holy souls, they carry the scepter of kingship in the other world. On the high seats of justice, they issue their commands and they send on gifts according to each man's deserving. Those who drink of this cup abide in the high bowers of splendor above the throne of the Ancient of Days, and they sit in the emporium of might within the lofty pavilion. Naught shall they know of sun or piercing cold. That sun and piercing cold means they have no awareness of anything else but the love of God and obedience to Him, to the laws and the wishes of God. You see, this is the height that every one of us we can grow to, progress to. This is meant for all of us. And we all have the ability, capacity to do this if we wish. Harisa, you had a question.
Yes, thank you so much. Excellent presentation. I'm learning a lot. I just have a question. How do you answer when people say they don't need to believe in a prophet or a manifestation of God, and they can still have good character and be the author of every righteous deed without recognizing a prophet?
Well, then you have to ask them, where did they learn that from? Because they learn from their parents, right? From their community or from their religion. Even if they don't believe in religion, ultimately, as far back as you go, these attributes was brought to humanity from God through the manifestation. These are not you see, man without the help of manifestation can never have awareness of spiritual attributes. Spiritual attributes comes from God and is not understood physically. Only through the connection spiritually to the manifestation that these attributes are gained. Otherwise, our soul, all it can see and recognize is the earthly existence to satisfy his physical needs without any spiritual attributes. So when you talk to that person, if you keep going back and back and back and back, you ultimately come to a point that whoever taught this was a prophet of God, manifestation of God, who brought the teachings to humanity. Humanity by itself did not discover these things. Even Bahá'u'lláh in the Gleaning says that philosophers, these great philosophers that exist, whether they were Greeks or Persian or whoever, they all sat at the foot of the minor prophets of Israel, and they learned philosophy from them. Of course, they developed it, but the fundamentals of the philosophy was learned from the prophets of God. It wasn't from man, but through reflection, they came to understand it better and helped humanity to understand these philosophies. I hope I helped you with your question.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, I need somebody to read this because my eyes don't see these writings well. Who's volunteering? Terry, you're a good reader. Now, I'd like to ask, as we are reading, if you have any questions, stop us immediately. Let's talk about it before we go any further. Now, here we are talking about detachment. All right? To get to the seventh stage, that absolute nothingness, it requires detachment. But we have to understand exactly what detachment is. So, Terry, if you would please.
Okay, three major barriers between the soul and its creator. The following is an excerpt from the Covenant of Bahá'u'lláh by Mr. Adid Tahazadeh, reprinted here and with kind permission from George Ronald Publishers. There are many barriers interposed between man and his creator. In one of the tablets, Baha'u'lláh states that there are 3 barriers between man and God. He exhorts the believers to pass beyond these so that they may attain his presence. The first barrier is attachment to the things of this world. The second is attachment to the rewards of the next world. And the third is attachment to the kingdom of names. These formidable barriers must be removed before man can draw near to God. It is for these purpose that God hath sent his messengers throughout the ages. How far do you want me to go?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The first barrier, attachment to the physical world. A believer becomes attached to the things of this world when he allows his material, intellectual, and selfish interest to take precedence over the interests of the cause of God. This does not mean that he has to forego his personal interests, but rather to use them in promoting his spiritual pursuits, and not to allow earthly things to come between him and God. Let's see. Since attachment to this world is a great barrier which prevents man from fulfilling his part in the covenant of God, Baha'u'lláh and Abdu'l-Baha have exhorted their followers in many of their tablets to become detached from earthly desires, to turn instead to God and obey his commandments.
Any questions so far?
Okay. So in other words, what it's saying is that, okay, you allow your intellectual pursuits to become a barrier. So in other words, you say, well, I'm too smart, or I know this, so why do I need that? Is that basically what you're
It
referring
is.
to?
That falls under the kingdom of the third kingdom.
Okay.
Okay, which we're going to read. So
All
if
right.
you would continue, please.
O my servant, could ye apprehend with what wonders of my beneficence and bounty I have willed to entrust your souls to ye would of a truth rid yourselves of attachment to all created things, and would gain a true knowledge of your own selves, a knowledge which is the same as the comprehension of mine own being. You would find yourselves independent of all else but me, and would perceive with your inner and outer eye, and manifest as the revelation of my effulgent name, the seas of my loving kindness and bounty moving within you. Suffer not your idle fancies, your evil passions, your insincerity and blindness of heart to dim the luster or stain the sanctity of so lofty a station. You are even as the bird which soareth within the full force of its mighty wings, and with complete and joyous confidence through the immensity of the heaven, and until impelled to satisfy its hunger, it turneth longingly to the water and clay of the earth below it, and having been entrapped in the mesh of its desire, findeth itself impatient to resume its flight to the realms where it came, powerless to shake off the burdens weighing on its sullied wings. That bird, can you kind of that bird, hitherto an inmate of the heavens, is now forced to seek a dwelling place upon the dust, Wherefore, O my servant, defile not your wings with the clay of waywardness and vain desires, and suffer them not to be stained with the dust of envy. Envy and hate, that ye may not be hindered from soaring in the heaven of my divine knowledge. Want to stop there?
Yeah, we stop here. Anyone, any question? You see here. the
Molly
source
raised her
are-
hand.
Yes.
Trumbies. Molly, please go ahead.
Okay, Molly.
Yeah, I have a question about this, if you can comment on it. It says, there is unity of manifestations in the next world. They are there for the progress of souls, of knowledge and acceleration of their spiritual station. We don't mention about the manifestations, what they can do for the progress of the souls. For instance, if they're Christian or Buddhist or whatever, there is the unity of manifestations to help them progress in their knowledge of what God wants them to do.
You see, all the manifestations are in the Apple Kingdom.
Yes, I'm talking about the Abha Kingdom.
They all in Apple Kingdom, they all sit upon the throne of everlasting.
Right,
Okay?
unity.
They're all united. And their purpose is progress of human beings through all the worlds of God. Okay?
Mhm.
All the worlds of God has its own spiritual institutions to govern the souls through all the worlds of God. You see, in this world, we have the Baha'i institutions. We have the Universal House of Justice, the National Spiritual Assemblies. This is what we have in this world. All the other worlds of God has its own institutions. Because remember, all the worlds of God have to be governed. Remember, I just read from the fourth valley, the concourse on high, they carry the scepter of kingship,
Mhm.
and they send their demand. You see, this is a representative of these institutions that exist in Apple Kingdom, which affects all the worlds of God. All the levels, all the kingdoms of God has its own institutions on the rules of the Bahá'u'lláh, the manifestation of God. And this institution, whatever way it is, I'm not saying I understand or I know, but I know there is for the order and the progress of humanity in all the worlds of God. The laws, the ordinances comes from above, as I read. And the lower kingdom, they obey these laws. All the gifts that comes, it comes through from Baha'u'lláh through these concourse on high, these holy souls, to all the worlds of God below, according to their need and the deserving.
Mhm.
Okay? That world is not that much different from here.
Mhm.
It's it operates on a higher level, but the principles are one and the same. The elements different. We'll find out when we go there. But whatever the elements are, still are the elements through which the soul progresses and advances. Until such time it reaches Apple Kingdom, that a form is given to it that's eternally theirs. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, who else wants to read? Jeremiah, you want to read? You got a nice voice.
Oh, okay, where do you start?
Okay, Molly, you want to read?
Oh,
This
sure.
concept of detachment.
Okay. O concourse of monks, seclude not yourselves in churches.
No, where are you? Where are you? No. This concept of detachment from material things. Right from
yeah,
there.
here it is. I see it. This concept of detachment from material things is often misunderstood and is taken to mean renouncing the world. Many people think that the way to detachment is to shut oneself away in a monastery, lead an ascetic life, or live as a mendicant, careless of one's personal affairs and responsibilities. None of these practices conform with the teachings of Baha'u'lláh. In his second tablet to Napoleon III, Baha'u'lláh addressing the Christian monks admonishes them in these words: O concourse of monks, seclude not yourselves in churches and cloisters. Come forth by my leave, and occupy yourselves with that which will profit your souls and the souls of men. Thus biddeth you the King of the day of reckoning. Seclude yourselves in the stronghold of my love. This verily is a befitting seclusion, were ye of them that perceive it. He that shutteth himself up in a house is indeed as one dead. It behoveth man to show forth that which will profit all created things. That he that bringeth forth no fruit is fit for fire. Thus counseleth you your Lord, and he verily is the Almighty, the all bounteous. Enter ye into wedlock, that after you someone may fill your place. We have forbidden you perfidious acts, and not that which will demonstrate fidelity. Attachment to this world may be described as anything which becomes a barrier between God and man, depriving the individual from drawing near to his Maker. It is clear from the writings of Baha'u'lláh that God has created this world for man alone. For instance, in the hidden words, Baha'u'lláh declares, O son of dust, all that is in heaven and earth, I have ordained for thee, except the human heart. This means that the world and all that is therein is created for man. God wants him to benefit from its wealth, to exploit its resources wisely and in harmony with nature, to work and possess all the good things he can earn, and to enjoy all the legitimate pleasures that life bestows upon him. But at no time must he allow the things of this world to possess him and rule over his heart and soul. Indeed, in this dispensation, Baha'u'lláh has ordained work rendered in the spirit of service to mankind as worship of God. He enjoins upon man the duty of working for the betterment of the world and the building of a new world order on this planet. In one of his tablets, Baha'u'lláh has revealed these exalted words: should a man wish to adorn himself with the ornaments of the earth, to wear its apparels, or partake of the benefits it can bestow, no, no harm can befall him. If he alloweth nothing whatever to intervene between him and God, for God hath ordained every good thing, whether created in the heavens or in the earth, for such of his servants as truly believe in him. Eat ye, O people, for the good things which God hath allowed you, and deprive not yourselves from this wondrous bounties. Render thanks and praise unto him, and he of them that are truly thankful.
Okay, any comments so far?
Oh, it's beautiful. Just beautiful.
All right.
Well,
Yes, Dave.
yeah, I just got one comment. So in other words, it's okay to go out and, if you wear diamonds and all that, but as long as you didn't do any bad things to attain the wealth, then it's okay. Like as long as if you're a good worker, or if you're a good manager or something like that, then it's okay to have nice things. But if you violate the Ten Commandments or do something reprehensible to gain the wealth, then there's a problem with that. That's
Well, that
basically.
is true, but also we can take that one step further. Okay, what you said is correct. But now let's say you're an extremely wealthy individual and you have a mansion, you have a Rolls Royce, you eat out of a gold plate, and there are people outside are hungry. As a Baha'i, would you continue living like that, knowing other people are hungry and in need?
No, I wouldn't. I
You
would make
wouldn't.
sure, yeah, I'd make sure that they have at least, a roof over their head. I would at least, I would create some sort of institution such that, I mean, their basic needs would be met. They could have health care. They would be able to at least work for a living instead of being homeless. I
That's fine,
mean,
as long
yeah.
as those things are provided. Baha'u'lláh says, the poor are a trust, my trust within thee. You see? So we have an obligation, a wealthy man has an obligation to society, even though it's perfect to have all those things. But a true Baha'i, knowing where there are people suffering, would not be willing to live like that and let other people suffer. Okay, would you like to continue reading?
Sure.
Are you okay, Terry?
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, if Molly wants to read, she can read if she wants
Oh,
to.
sure. Whatever. One may be wealthy, yet detached from material things. Man can achieve this if he lives his life in accordance with the teachings of God. In one of his tablets, Baha'u'lláh states that the good things of this world and its beautiful products are all the manifestations of the attributes of God. To possess them will not become the cause of attachment to material things, provided the individual does not fix his affections upon them, not allow himself to be possessed by them, because this world and all that is therein are like unto a passing shadow and transitory. To appreciate the true meaning of detachment, let us examine the nature of a human being. We note that the animal nature in man makes him selfish. The instinct for survival drives him to find food, clothing, and shelter for himself. He pursues comfort, wealth, and well being, and has an insatiable appetite for collecting any beautiful and pleasurable object that comes his way. All these, as well as his emotional, spiritual, and intellectual pursuits, are aimed at benefiting his own self. He is, on the other hand, is that
Jeremiah, bring it.
oh,
No, okay, thank
he
you.
is a master of his own life, a pivot around which circle all his material possessions, as well as his intellectual pursuits. One day he finds the cause of God, recognizes its truth, falls in love with it, and then he adds it, like his other possessions, to his collection. He remains the master figure in the center, and all his possessions, including the faith, revolve around him and serve his interests. Such a person is attached to the things of this world, for he allows his own interest to take precedence over the interests of the cause and his own ego, to rule over his spiritual side. He puts his religion on a par with his other pursuits and selfishly expects to benefit from it just as he benefits from his other possessions. On the other hand, genuine detachment from earthly things is achieved when the individual makes the cause of God the pivot of his life, so that all of his personal and material possessions may revolve around his faith. In this case, he can benefit from his material possessions without being attached to them. And since the cause of God is a prime motivating influence in his life, he will never act against the teachings of his faith. Every step he takes in his daily activities will be in harmony with the commandments of God. When a person reaches this exalted position, the interests of the faith take precedence over his personal interests. And when he arises to serve the cause of God, he will be ready to meet the challenge, whatever the cost. Such a person has reached the summit of detachment. Becoming detached from the things of this world is often a painful process and involves sacrifice. But when the believer gives up something dear to him for the sake of the cause of God, mysterious forces will be released, which will cause the faith to grow, to offer up one's time, to labor for the establishment of the faith in a locality, to give up the comforts of home, and to go as a pioneer to foreign lands, to offer up one's substance for the promotion of the cause, to be persecuted for one's faith, and even to give one's life at the end. All of these sacrifices are meritorious in the sight of God and will undoubtedly bring victory to his cause, provided one's motives are pure and sincere. That is the essential condition of loyalty and steadfastness in the covenant of God, purity of motive. Without it, one's deeds are not acceptable by God. Bahá'u'lláh testifies to this truth by these words. O children of Adam, holy words and pure and goodly deeds ascend unto the heaven of celestial glory. Strive that your deeds may be cleansed from the dust of self and hypocrisy, to find favor at the court of glory. For ere long, the assayers of mankind shall, in the holy presence of the adored one, accept naught but absolute virtue and deeds of stainless purity. This is a day star of wisdom and the divine mystery that hath shone above the horizon of the divine will. Blessed are they that turn thereunto. The second barrier, attachment to the next world. As to the second barrier, we note in the holy writings that the purpose of the creation of man is that he may know God. One of the traditions of Islam states that in the beginning, God was a hidden treasure, but desired to be discovered and recognized. He created man for this purpose, and now man has found God and turned to him. Returning to the short obligatory prayer which Bahá'u'lláh revealed for his followers to recite each day, we read, I bear witness, O my God, that thou hast created me to know thee and to worship thee. Man, therefore, is created to serve his Lord and worship him with a pure heart, hoping to attain his good pleasure. The purpose is not that he receive a reward for his actions. Man's deeds are thus praiseworthy in the sight of God when they are performed solely for his love and for no reason. To this, Bahá'u'lláh testifies in the Kitab-i-Aqdas. Observe my commandments for the love of my beauty. In fact, even when a believer turns to the manifestation of God with true love, he cannot help but leave aside his personal interests. His attraction to the manifestation is such that he will offer up everything to his Lord and will seek no benefits for himself. Did you want me to continue?
Yes, come to the third. Read
Sure.
as far as the third
If a
barrier.
man, sure. If a man's actions are motivated by the thought that he may reap a reward for himself in the next world, then this is attachment and a barrier between himself and God. To be detached means to do everything for the sake of God and to seek no recompense.
Jeremiah, do we have time to read the third barrier?
We do.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
Terry, would you like to read?
I can continue if you'd like.
Oh, I had to unmute myself. I had to.
Okay, continue, please.
All right, give me a second. The third barrier, attachment to the kingdom of names. As to the third barrier, there are many references in the writings of Bahá'u'lláh to the kingdom of names. God in his own essence is exalted above attributes. However, in all his dominions and within each of his words, is it words or worlds?
Word.
Both spiritual and physical, he revealed kingdoms of his attributes. Every created thing manifests the names and attributes of God. In the spiritual world, these attributes are manifest with such intensity that men will never be able to comprehend them in this life. In the human world, however, these attributes appear within the kingdom of names, and men often becomes attached to these names. In many of his tablets, Baha'u'lláh exhorts his followers not to become the bond slaves of the kingdom of names. The well-known Islamic saying, "The names come down from heaven," has many meanings. In this world, every one of God's attributes is clad with a name, and every such name reveals the characteristics of that attribute. For instance, generosity is an attribute of God, and it manifests itself in human beings. However, a person who has this attribute often becomes proud of it and loves to be referred to as generous. When his generosity is acknowledged by other people, he becomes happy, and when it is ignored, he is unhappy. This is one form of attachment to the kingdom of names, although this example concerns the name generosity. Same is true of all the names and attributes of God manifested within the individual. Usually, man ascribes these attributes to his own person rather than to God, and employs them to boost his own ego. For instance, a learned man uses the attribute of knowledge to become famous and feels gratified and uplifting when his name is publicized far and wide. Or there is the individual whose heart leaps with feelings of pride and satisfaction when he hears his name mentioned and finds himself admired. These are examples of attachment to the kingdom of names. Want me to continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Human society at present exerts a pernicious influence upon the soul of man. Instead of allowing him to live a life of service and sacrifice, it is highly competitive and teaches him to pride himself on his accomplishments. From early childhood, he is trained to develop his ego and to seek to exalt himself above others, in the ultimate aim of achieving self-importance, success and power. The revelation of Baha'u'lláh aims to reverse this process. The soul of man needs to be adorned with the virtues of humility and self-effacement, so that may become detached from the kingdom of names. Abdu'l-Baha, the true exemplar of the teachings of Baha'u'lláh, demonstrated this form of detachment by his actions. He never, in the course of his life, wished to exalt his name, nor did he seek publicity for himself. For instance, he had an immense dislike of being photographed. He said, to have a picture of oneself is to emphasize the personality. During the first few days of his visit to London, he refused to be photographed. However, as a result of much pressure by the newspaper reporters and persistent pleas by the friends to be allowed to take his photograph, Abdu'l-Baha acquiesced in order to make them happy. The exalted titles conferred upon him by Baha'u'lláh are indicative of Abdu'l-Baha's lofty station, yet Abdu'l-Baha never applied them to himself. Instead, after the ascension of Baha'u'lláh, he took the title of Abdu'l-Baha, servant of Baha. and urged the believers to call him only by this name. True servitude at the threshold of Bahá'u'lláh was all he prized. There are some of his words as he describes with utter self-effacement and the reality of his station. My name is Abdu'l-Baha. My qualifications is Abdu'l-Baha. My reality is Abdu'l-Baha. My praise is Abdu'l-Baha. Thraldom to the blessed perfection and is my glorious and refulgent diadem. In servitude to all the human race, my perpetual religion. No name, no title, no mention, no commendation have I, nor will ever accept Abdu'l-Baha. Nor I have except Abdu'l-Baha. This is my longing. This is my greatest yearning. This is my eternal life. This is my everlasting glory. One of the distinguishing features of Baha'u'llah's embryonic world order is that it does not harbor egotistical personalities. Baha'u'llah has conferred authority on its institutions, whether local, national, or international. But the individuals who are privileged to serve on them are devoid of any authority, unlike men who wield power in the world today and seek to acquire fame and popularity. Members of the Baha'i institutions cannot but manifest humility and self-effacement if they are to remain faithful to Baha'u'lláh. Those who do not succeed through immaturity or lack of faith in living up to these standards are indeed attached to the kingdom of names and become deprived of the bounties of God in this age. To sever oneself from the kingdom of names may prove to be the most difficult task for a Baha'i, and the struggle may indeed last a lifetime. If a man can only realize that his virtues are not intrinsically his own, but rather are manifestations of the attributes of God, then he is freed from the kingdom of names and become truly humble. Such a man will bestow divine perfections upon the world of humanity. This is the loftiest station that God has destined for man. To the extent that a believer succeeds in severing himself from these three forms of attachment, will he be fulfilling in his part the covenant of God. Want me to continue?
Yeah, we're coming to an end. So,
all right. To achieve this exalted goal, man needs to recognize the station of Baha'u'lláh as a manifestation of God for this age, and then observe his commandments with clear vision, mature reflection, and prayerful attitude. This can be achieved through the deepening one's knowledge of the faith and in serving his cause. It is then that the heart will become a recipient of the knowledge of God and will attain certitude in its faith. It is then that obedience to the teachings of the faith become wholehearted as the individual grasps the significance of God's commandments and comes to understand their wisdom, their excellence, and their necessity. It is then that his thoughts, his vision, his aspirations, his words, and his deeds will be in harmony with the covenant of God. And it is then that his soul will acquire spiritual qualities and virtues. This is the ultimate outcome of the obedience to the covenant, which will enable the soul to progress in the spiritual worlds of God.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any comments, anyone?
Yeah, I missed over what it means that not to be attached to the kingdom of names. I was a little confused about that.
That means whatever attributes of God that you have and you reflect, it's not from you. It's from God. You see, in reality, we are only conduit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the words are from God. Attributes are from God.
Yes.
We are used as a conduit for the manifestation of these things to humanity. It's not from us. So something that is not from us, we cannot feel glorified by it. Okay?
Sounds like what we're trying to avoid is they're trying to avoid some sort of cult of personalities. You know, instead of focusing on the people who occupy the institutions, just focus on the institutions themselves.
Well, it's about ego.
Yeah.
In Baha'i faith, ego doesn't exist, even though it exists in human beings, but it's something we have to get rid of. You know, when you think you feel great, somebody glorifies your name for whatever reason, that is ego. And that's what Kingdom of Names is talking about. But once we recognize all of these things, these attributes are not from us, it's from God. It's just God using us through us. These attributes are reflected to humanity, then we are free of attachment to the kingdoms of name.
Because when I think of kingdom of names, I think of God's attributes. When you say kingdom of names, that's what.
Well, these are all God's attributes.
Yeah, that's what got me a little confused. It says, "Be detached from the kingdom of names."
Well,
that
being detached, that means we don't glorify, you know, ourselves. That it's coming from me. I'm so wonderful.
Okay, I got it now.
Okay, it's not us.
It's
not from us.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, this concludes our booklet. It was a pleasure being with you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Jeremiah.
Thank you, Kambiz, and I really appreciate you taking the time to go over this booklet with us again. And it's on the website for everyone to download, whoever would like to download it and read it independently and use it as a study. It would be a wonderful resource. And then you can also come back to these videos, which are online, and use those to help with your study as well. So again, Kambiz, thank you so much for taking the time. This is the final presentation for this series. And next week we start a new series. So
I like to recommend to the friends who have the Kitab-e-Iqan, the Book of Certitude, to read from page 192.
192, gotcha.
192 from Kitab-e-Iqan. It gives you more, Baha'u'lláh gives you more understanding through reading those pages.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay?
So enlightening.
Thank you to all. Have a wonderful weekend. And see you in the future.
thank you, everyone. Have a great
Bye now.
afternoon.
Remember to
Bye-bye.
like and subscribe.